Texas brings in Michael Fasusi. The visit apparently went better than his summer visit. The only problem is there's stuff in the nature of, I guess his mom really doesn't like something about Texas. I don't know what it is, but that is a rumor out there. She did not come on the visit, and Jerry Hamilton of On Texas said, watch out for that with Texas A&M. If she decides to go to the Texas A&M visit and she didn't show up to Texas, I think that speaks volumes here. I think, and I've said this for a while, I think he's the number one recruit and has been on the board for Texas, even when DeCorian Moore was available. What's your perception of Michael Fasusi and what his prospects are at Texas?
Yeah, I mean, there is, like you said, and you can't call him uncommitted, but like he is uncommitted because if you're dating around, you're not committed, right? We're not married if you're dating around. So like that to me, like again, we see what the vital point is for Texas and for football as a whole, right? Regardless of the offensive system, regardless of the era of college football, regardless of anything else, like games are won and lost in the trenches. We see the difference. We have like a literal data point. We can say Sark's first year in Texas, lighten the pants on the offensive and defensive line, get pushed around in Arkansas and Fayetteville, right? 3 years later, heavier in the pants, have first round offensive linemen, have NFL defensive linemen. They win and they go and can impose their will, right? So like I have been on Fasusi. I have group chats and things like that. Like I would be shocked if he stays committed to OU just simply by virtue of like I think the writing's on the wall with that offensive coaching staff. I think Bill Bedenbaugh may not be in Norman following the season. I think that's probably the ripcord. Now that was a feeling before they pulled off this massive upset of Alabama, so maybe things have settled, but that offensive coaching staff's going to look different. And the offensive line coach he committed to might not be in Norman anymore. So that's, again, something that's got to be playing in the back of his head. As far as the biggest recruits left out there, like that seems to me to be the one that everybody's putting the feather in their cap for it. And again, I love it. I'm an offensive line guy. That's what I played when I played football decades and decades ago. Like I'm a firm believer football games are won and lost in the trenches. And that is one of the best offensive linemen the state has put out. Kelvin Banks, probably, maybe we could say that, right? Like we've seen the instant impact a guy like that can have. So again, we'll watch to see where if Mom shows up in College Station, if that's enough to sway things for him. Who knows, right? Again, these are volatile situations. We're a couple weeks out from signing day, so it should be wrapped up here pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think basically 2 weeks out from Sunday, even less than that. So It's going to be interesting. I think he's the type of prospect where you see Kelvin Banks come in his freshman year and start right away. I think Michael Fasusi has that talent to where he could come in and start right away. And this is a guy that's only been playing organized football for 4 years. So This is a guy that's only going to get better. If you watch him, the little that I have, like just explosive, moves very, very well for his size. And that's what you want out of an offensive tackle, very explosive athlete. So I really want him. He's been my number one guy. I would love to get him in this class. Everyone was talking about DeCorian Moore, and I was saying, please get this guy because wide receivers, listen, I love them. They're great. But like you said, people in the trenches win football games, and you're not going to find DeCorian Moore, but I'll take Jamie French, Dalen McCutcheon, and Khalil Lockett. I'll take those three. I'm fine with that. So that really helps out. But talking about a really good athlete, Michael Terry III, he's been rumored to Texas for a very long time at this point now. It was Texas, then it was Oregon, then it was Nebraska. Now it seems to be Texas and Nebraska. And actually, again, Jerry Hamilton reported with Inside or on Texas Football that basically at his birthday party, he had half a Nebraska and half Texas cake, guys. So he doesn't even know where he's going. That's pretty funny to me. But it's also crazy the world we live in because this guy, for his senior pictures of his high school, has Texas Longhorns glove like this. That is going to be a lasting memory you have, and you have this, and you're not going to go to Texas. It's really hard for me to believe that, but we're in a completely different era of college recruiting. Like, if someone had that 10 years ago, they're going to Texas. There'd be no doubt in my mind. But now, I don't know. I think it's honestly going to come down to what he wants to do. Texas has pitched wide receiver, tight end, H-back, hybrid type player where you play everywhere, show what the NFL you can do at every position. It helps you get drafted, makes you a more versatile player. Whereas Nebraska said, hey, you're going to play wide receiver. And I think he really wants to play wide receiver. That was the thing, main thing that I've been hearing. So I think Texas leads here, but it is narrow. I think it's like 55-45, my confidence level here. What do you think about Michael Terry?
I mean, he's a great player to have in the boat. And my comments are not going to reflect that, like, the lack of intensity that I want this kid. But like at this point, like this feels like one of those recruitments that a kid is trying to find reasons not to commit to Texas.
Yeah.
And we've seen those things in the past play out in a myriad of different ways, right? He has been rumored as a silent for a long time. He's been a guy who's been in the boat and not in the boat. And it almost feels like, and again, I would love to have Michael Terry in the class. There are very few athletes that are built like Michael Terry that come like, it's just one of those dudes that like, he's just built different. You watch him on a football field and you can instantly identify like he's that kind of guy. But at this point, like it looks like he's trying to find a reason not to commit to Texas, and that's fine. Like I'm not going to begrudge anybody. This is the biggest decision he's made in his 18 years of life. So like make the right choice for you. And if Texas doesn't feel like the right choice, then that's great. Like do what you need to do for you. I would love to have him in the class. This offensive class is already elite in a lot of ways at that wide receiver position. Offensive line, the class is really, really solid. So like it would be an incredible addition to the class. It would put Texas probably over the top to be top 3 guaranteed class in this cycle. So like I would love to have Michael Terry in the class. Period. End of sentence. Right. But also if he's kind of wishy-washy about it, like we've got 2 weeks to make this choice. So let's hopefully get him in the ship. But again, if he's looking for a reason not to commit to Texas, he'll find one.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. We'll actually jump to another guy I kind of feel the same way about that we've been rumored because he decommitted from Florida State. We already got Myron Charles in that boat from Florida State with the decommitment. Dalen McCutcheon at wide receiver with the decommitment. Javion Hilson. When Javion Hilson decommitted, I firmly thought he was going to be at Texas in the next week or two. And it's been like 3.5 months now, still not committed to Texas. In fact, he actually just went on an official visit to Michigan. They're starting to throw a lot of money around, obviously, with the Bryce Underwood situation. So I think this is another guy that doesn't really want to come to Texas. Like, it'd be awesome to have him. And he's the number 2 or the number 3 edge in the class, according to 247. And it'd give you like Smith Orogbo and him off the edge would be freaking phenomenal in this class. Again, with another 2 years of Colin Simmons as well. So that would be insane with that edge class. But I just don't see it happening because, like you said about Michael Terry, every reason has been given, it seems like, not to go to Texas. Like he could have come to Texas for an official visit this week, and he decided to go to Michigan. And then he's going to Texas A&M this week for this game. So I think he honestly probably ends up at A&M. That's my gut feeling here. I don't love it, obviously, him committing to Texas A&M, and I'd love to have him, but I think that's where he ends up.
Well, and I think you mentioned Smith Orogbo, and then you also have Lance Jackson in this class. So, like, it's also a crowded edge class, right? Is it an issue of, like, there's a lot of bodies in the boat already? And Orogbo and Jackson are both guys that are NFL potential kind of guys. Like, it is going to be a crowded group. Now, that being said, we've seen a lot from Pete Kwiatkowski and his staff that shows, like, if you can get on the field, we will highlight your skill sets. So there's that to contend to, but again, this is one of those recruitments that, like, it feels like he's looking for a reason to go somewhere else. And again, I will never begrudge a kid for doing that. Like, take all of the official visits you can, because again, there's not a cap on it anymore. So take all of the official visits you can, vet this process very intentionally, like only commit to the school that you feel that is the best fit for you. So like if he doesn't feel like that's Texas a slam dunk, then, and I would much rather him go and do the due diligence, right? Go and check out Michigan, go and check out A&M, watch Texas beat the pants off them this weekend, right? And then make an informed decision, because when push comes to shove, if they're half in the boat, half out of the boat, and they commit to Texas, they could leave in a year from the transfer via the transfer portal if they don't feel like the decision was the right one. So again, do your due diligence, make the decision, make what's in the best interest for your family. You only get one football career. So like, again, I'm not the type to begrudge a kid for making and doing that due diligence. But again, I think this is one of those that you can't count on to have in the class just because they're looking for a reason not to. And again, with Lance Jackson in the class, with Smith Orogbo in the class, we can't have this conversation without talking about Joseph Mbachu, who committed this weekend as well. A kid who's only been playing football a year. Go watch his tape. That kid's only played football a year. Insanity, right? That is a longer development track, but the kid has all of the things you want out of a lineman, and he's going to be a guy we're talking about with NFL future in 3 years or so. So like, this is already a really solid class. You've got Sharma in there from California. Like, this is a good group of defensive linemen. So again, would love to have Hilson in this class, a guy who would raise the tide for the defense. But if he comes to the decision, decides that Texas is the place it needs to be, the class is going to be okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think Hilson just puts like the cherry on top and makes it the best like defensive line class in the country is basically what it do 100%. Instead of like a top 5 or 6. He's a really good athlete, and I think the best case is what we said earlier of there's been 12 sacks and 5 guys have gotten those 12 sacks over the past 2 weeks. So you can pitch that to him and say, listen, you can come here and all of you can eat. It doesn't just have to be one of you. You can all eat here. You're all good. We'll develop you. We'll get you to that next level in the NFL. And Sark's going to do that again. I mean, they're probably going to have 3 to 4 first-round draft picks again this year. They're going to have 8+ guys drafted. So you're going to have, almost 20 guys drafted in 2 years. So that's another pitch to him as well.
And then back-to-back years, Texas has put a guy on their all-time freshman sacks list, Anthony Hill a year ago, and now Colin Simmons. Like, you're not only going to come in and we'll have food for everybody, but you're going to eat immediately. None of this freshman to the back of the line stuff. You're going to eat on day one, young buck. If you can get on the field, we will find a way to get you to the quarterback. Anthony Hill had 5.5 last year, which is like top 10-ish freshman all time. Colin Simmons is within striking distance of number 2 all time. He would have to have like 12 in the next X number of games to get number 1 all time. Probably not going to happen, but he is within striking distance of the second best performance from a freshman edge in the history of the University of Texas football. So like that's a recruiting pitch right there. Eaten from day one.
100%. And Javion Hilson and Colin Simmons definitely has a little bit more upside, but they're pretty similar recruiting profile wise, body type wise, and everything like that. So that'd be my pitch to him. Last guy we'll hit on is Justice Terry. I never really thought Texas was in the picture here. I thought this was more of a ploy to get more money out of Auburn or Georgia, honestly, because he got invited. Well, his camp actually reached out to Texas and then got invited to the game for Texas versus Georgia. And I caution people, hey, listen, I think this is more of he wants to watch Georgia than he wants to watch Texas. It's like another basically official visit in a different place for Georgia. And I still kind of feel that way because Jerry Hamilton also reported that this is like Kirby Smart, like he wants him, but he's also pushing, I don't want him to end up at Texas. Like if he ends up at Auburn, that's one thing, but I just can't let him go to Texas because Texas is starting to get that pipeline into the Peach State. And Georgia, if anyone doesn't know, is like number 1 when it comes to getting guys into the NFL per capita for states. So we've got Joseph Bachu. He's from Georgia. We tried to get Kevin Wynn from Georgia. If you can get Justice Terry, which I believe is I think he is the number 1 defensive lineman in the country recruiting-wise from Georgia, you're setting up a pipeline there, and that is something Kirby Smart wants to avoid at all costs.
And Texas has already done it in Florida, right? Two years running, had the top running back in Florida. Now they have 3 of the top 10 players in the state of Florida in this class, right? So he's seeing that Sark is getting these tendrils out into the classic SEC country. So, I mean, I don't blame him for wanting to put a wall up around the state, right? Because if Texas can get that pipeline in there, oh boy, things are going to get cooking. Yeah, I mean, Kenny Baker has done a really good job building this class. Like Kenny Baker – I wasn't sure about Kenny Baker when they hired him. Didn't have a lot of bona fides. Didn't have many skins on the wall, as they say. But he has done a really, really good job building this class. I think, again, this is another one where Texas did a good job of filling the boat early so they could focus on big game hunting late, right? The foundation of this class, the floor of this class, really high on that line. And I think adding Bachu this last weekend helped kind of solidify that floor. And so now with 2 weeks left till signing day, it's all top 10 guys. It's all top 20 guys. They're big game hunting. Kenny Baker can hit the phone, or his assistant could hit the phone and have these conversations. And really this is where you try to land the whales. And this is big boy recruiting. Like if Texas is going to be competing in the SEC, if Texas is going to be competing for national championships, this is the kind of stuff you have to deal with, right? And if you're not cut out for it, I get it, but like we're going to be in these squeaky bum recruitments moving forward, right? If Texas is going to be competing, these big types of athletes, these big game guys, this isn't going to be a Mac Brown recruiting class where he's got everybody cinched up 6 months before signing day, right? This is going to be to the wire. And this is another one where we're probably not going to find out until signing day. This will be a big swing. Either way, again, I think the class, back to the point, right? The defensive line class could be fine. Kenny Baker done an incredible job. And I think Texas has shown that they're able to get linemen into the league. Like, that's the biggest thing that we're looking at. These guys are looking at, can I get to the league? And now we've seen for 3 or 4 years running, going into their last year, a guy who's a fringe NFL guy makes a big jump last year at Texas, makes a bunch of money for himself. We saw it last year. Texas had 2 of those guys. This year, Big Vern, Alfred Collins probably both earned themselves quite a bit of money in the NFL. We've seen it, Poona Ford. We've seen all sorts of guys. Texas is getting that NFL, getting that defensive tackle, the NFL pipeline. And so if Texas can pitch Terry on that, now again, Georgia has that, Alabama has that, Auburn doesn't as much as of late, but historically does. But Texas has the skins on the wall recently to say, we're putting defensive tackles in the NFL. And they're playing really well, right? They're playing really, really well. So Devondre Sweat making heads turn, right? He's a guy who's Byron Murphy, the guy who's making heads turn. That's your recruiting pitch. That's your pitch tape. It's like, hey, you want to be in the league in 3 years? We can do that.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think you can pitch early playing time because a lot of those guys, like you just talked about, are going to go off to the NFL. That is a hole that Texas is going to have to plug again this offseason. You know, we had to plug the Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy hole this season. You're going to have to plug the Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins hole next season. And I think we'll be fine with that, but you can definitely pitch Justice Terry of, hey, you can come in and contribute and probably play 25, 30% of the snaps right away with the talent level you have. So that's something to pitch there. And then obviously NIL game, Texas is always going to be up in the 5-6 of the country range now. I think Michigan might even be on a different level right now with the way they're starting to spend money. But Texas is always going to be there. And I think it's going to be interesting what happens down the stretch. You know, Sark has kind of pulled a rabbit out of his hat every season he's been here with a recruit. You saw Terrence Brooks flip his first year. You see Anthony Hill flip his second year. You saw Ty Anthony Smith flip last year. So who's that guy? Who is that guy going to be this signing day of, hey, we had no idea this guy was going to come to Texas, because Ty Anthony Smith hadn't even visited Texas last year. And then all of a sudden came to Texas. Who's that guy going to be this year? I think there's going to be one of those guys. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think one of the guys we mentioned, or like a Justice Terry, or there might even be someone off the board that just flips, because I think Terrence Brooks was pretty off the board when that happened. There was no one that was reporting, hey, Terrence Brooks is interested in Texas. He was early on, and then that faded away. Never heard anything. And then all of a sudden, oh, he's going to Texas. What the hell happened there? So it's going to be very interesting what happens on signing day.
Post Tom Herman clarity, we'll call that.
Yeah.